Assalamu alaikum. We are back, guys. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so we are going to have our Q&A, inshallah. Um, if there's going to be a moderator, let me know. If not, then I will await Brother Amin's message. Okay, cool. I have Brother Amin on standby. So if you would like to ask a question, please go ahead. Anything, inshallah. Very accessible. Just awaiting the message, inshallah. Awaiting the message.
Salam, Sayyid Hussain. We're just having people just log in. So
okay, no
another
problem.
minute. Apologies for the delay.
No problem. No problem.
He was there? Sayyid Hussain,
Yes.
sorry again to keep you waiting, but I think we have a few folks starting to log in. So inshallah, questions will be coming up. We do have an audience that will be watching as well on YouTube, but there's a chat there, so they sometimes feel more comfortable putting the questions in the chat. So if we do get questions, they'll either come in the Zoom chat, which you can see, but if anything comes in through the YouTube chat, I'll convey that question to you.
No problem. No problem, inshallah. Thank
And
you.
again, we'll respect the time. I know it's very, very early morning for you, so we'll try to.
Thank you. I'm at your service. I'm at your service, inshallah. Thank you very much.
I said that there are a few people online. I'll just start the conversation. Maybe I'll ask you the first question. It's been on my mind, especially knowing you and knowing some of your background. You spent some time, I guess. I'm not sure if was it like in solitude. What was that called? I mean, if you can just give us that background, because I'm very intrigued by that.
Yes. You mean me personally or in Islam?
You personally. I think you had gone through kind of I don't know what the, yeah, if you can just talk about that briefly.
Sure. I mean, Islamically speaking, we have the ideas of i'tikaf, of being in a masjid for 3 days. And this is an idea that is supposed to make one reflect on their own selves. When we apply it into our lives, for me personally, I do this several times throughout the year where I like to spend some time in isolation and try to be silent. And when you do that, slowly you begin to quieten the noise of the mind, quieten the outside distractions, if life can allow you to do this, that is, and you reflect on the self. Now, something that I have experienced very deeply in this regard is I spent a while in China a few years ago, and we had spent time in trying to study meditation. And I was studying the Buddhist religion because I have a master's degree in comparative religion, so this was my area of study. And so I had spent time there. I was the only Muslim in the city. And there was a period of time where we had 7 days where it was complete silence for 7 days. 7 days, you're not allowed to communicate with another human being in 7 days. No speaking, no laptop, no phones, no communication with anyone, no typing, no writing, just you. Communicate with yourself. And what you do all day is you meditate. You sit down in silence and you meditate. You breathe and you meditate, slowly focusing on one thought. And in Islam, we call this tadabbur or tafakkur. An hour of contemplation or reflection is better than 70 years of worship. And what would happen is slowly, because you're going through this state, you're quieting the mind. Usually, the mind's very fragmented. It has all these different ideas, and when you quieten the mind, it comes down into a center, moves very aligned, and then you begin to observe your thoughts and observe yourself, and you realize how much you are living a patterned lifestyle. That usually your lifestyle is something which there is no pattern for, something which 15% of what we do in life, 15% is based on our conscious decisions. 85% is based on patterns, things that we're not conscious of, things that we built over time. So when you realize those patterns, you can break them. How do you realize those patterns? In silence, in solitude, in isolation. Only for a set amount of time. In Islam, it's recommended that you do 3 days in the masjid. And it's recommended, of course, if you can do it in Ramadan, it would be very important. 3 days in the masjid, be quiet, stay alone, read the Quran, think, meditate, reflect. Think of who you are, where you're going, reflect upon where you're going to be standing on the day of judgment in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Reflect upon what He will say to you, what He will show you about yourself, where you'll be going. So these are all the different types of reflections that one would have in that period of isolation. And I think if you want to have that in your busy lives, if we live in the cities and we live a very busy life, we can't do this, then wake up for Fajr, maybe 20 minutes before Fajr time, everyone's asleep. You live your isolation time then. Rasulullah, he used to go to Ghar Hira, okay, the cave where he received revelation. This is the sunnah of the Prophet. You need to have your own Ghar Hira. The Prophet also went into the marketplace in the daytime. So you go to the marketplace, you work, you go into the city. But in the morning, Fajr is 5 a.m., wake up 4:30. Fajr is 6 a.m., wake up 5:30, 5:45. Spend that time, sahar time, the deep night time. Pray maybe in the night prayer, maybe some Quran. And then you will see wonders. You will see wonders. If anyone else would like to ask any question, I'm at your service, inshallah.
Yeah, I have one. Assalamu alaikum, said Makke. So, how do you dedicate
Salam.
yourself more to how do you dedicate yourself more to Islam?
Good question. To dedicate yourself more to Islam, you have to think of your goal. Why? Why should I dedicate myself to Islam? That's the first thing you have to think of, right? SubhanAllah, this is such a good question because yesterday I was in the maqam of Imam Hussain and I was with my good friend. We were praying. And then we sat down, we started speaking in the shrine. And then he said to me, as we are praying, usually people they pray, Ya Allah, in the name of Abu Abdullah, in the name of Imam Hussain, help me to purify my heart, forgive me, bless my parents, bless my family, give me wealth, give me children, we do all the prayers, right? How many people do you think prayed and said, Ya Allah, honor Islam. Ya Allah, bring honor to the Muslims. Make Islam successful, make Islam spread, make Islam. And I said, that's such a good idea. Who prays for Islam? Who sits and has, his feeling, his ideas, his passion is for Islam. Do you know who thinks like that? The Prophet Muhammad. He thinks like that. The Imams, they think like that. Islam is number one for them. Why? Because they see that the reality of life is based on Islam. Surrender to Allah. It's the truth. It's the reality. So they have a big ham. They are always thinking about the Muslims, what the Muslims need, and bringing the Muslims together, Muslim community, Muslim individuals. For you to want to dedicate yourself to Islam, you have to understand this point. Why should I dedicate myself to Islam? Because I want to dedicate myself to Allah. Allah wants me to dedicate myself to Islam. I want to dedicate myself to Allah because He is the ultimate reality and He is the one I love. He's my creator. He's ultimate beauty. He's absolute perfection. He's the one who blesses with all His blessings in my life. I want to be very close to Him before I die, so that when I die, I can be close to Him forever. To do that, then I need to realize that life is greater than my own individual self. And I want to focus on Islam and the community and the people and my responsibility to them. So this is how we pay it forward. Notice in Ramadan, it's time of togetherness, family, sacrificing for each other, giving, helping the neighbor. This idea, this faith is based on the idea of others before the self. Islam is built upon the community aspect. For me to dedicate myself to Islam, I need to start thinking about my contribution. How much do I contribute in my time, in my energy, in my money? If I don't have any of these, if I don't have energy, time, or money, how much do I contribute in my thoughts and in my prayers? That's the key. So when you're at the shrine and you're praying for everyone, pray for Islam. Pray for Islam as well. And think, what am I contributing to Islam of my time, my energy, my money, and my prayers and my thoughts? Okay, 5 things: time, money, energy, prayers, and thoughts. These 5 things are the ways in which one can begin to dedicate themselves to Islam and grade yourself on each one, and then try to increase the grade every time. Thank you, Mason. Big up to you, my brother. I love you.
Thank you, Sayyid Makke. Have a good day.
Habibi. You have a good day too. Would anyone else like to ask a question, inshallah? If there are any questions from YouTube, you can post them in the box. Okay, guys. If there's no questions,
Assalamu alaikum, Sayyidina.
Yes.
So what motivates you, your obedience to Allah, what motivates you when we, looking at you, alhamdulillah, and your journey, it's really interesting. What keeps you going? And,
Okay, yeah, okay. It's a nice question. If I am to think about it, um, when we see a baby and you love the baby and you feel like it's such a beautiful creation, and you kiss the baby's feet and you just want to hold it and you feel so purified by it, that's because we see beauty in the baby. So we love beauty. The human being loves beauty. When you meet your spouse and your heart skips a beat and you want to spend the rest of your life with them, it's because you see beauty in them. You love the feeling they give you. You love the feeling the baby gives you. My sister, you're a mother. Remember when you first had your child, how you'd feel when you look at your child. If someone asked you, what motivates you to be a mother? You'd feel, what kind of question is that? This is my child. I have so much love for them. I'd give my life for them. Because you say that because you see all that beauty in your child. Everything in life is this way, where when we feel that we want to give our absolute selves to a thing, it's because we see all of beauty in it. Now, my perspective is that I saw a lot of beauty in my life. I saw it in my mother, in my father. I see it in my nephew. I love my nephew so much. There's so much beauty in him. I see it in my brother. I see it in my wife. I see it in my teacher. There's so much beauty in the people I love. But ultimately, I know they are all shadows and they're just signs pointing at something real. They are my beloveds, but they are signs. They are going to leave this world one day. They're shadows. They're not here of their own accord. What I mean by that is they can't even sustain their own existence. I can't sustain mine. But I want beauty forever. I don't want limited beauty. I don't want my beauty to die. So the beauty that I found that never died was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when you feel His presence in your heart, you feel sakina. Then I begin to love the signs, my teacher, my parents, my siblings, my wife, the signs, I begin to love them way more because it's based on truth. So it doesn't die with my death. It doesn't die with their death. It goes forever. And when I'm in that love forever, it's like the feeling that you get with your child or the baby or anyone else. We all know this feeling, but where it's these are all feelings meant to point you towards something that does not die, something that is the source of that feeling, the origin. These are all signs of God. All of this, the feelings you get, that love that you feel, it's all a sign of God. He put that in you to bring you to Him. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un, because you're going back to beauty. So I realized this beauty, and I wanted to commit myself to the truth of whatever I could. Yani. So I'm a very small servant who is trying his best to realign himself with beauty. And through the Ahlul Bayt, who are the role models that show you how to do that. So you find all this beauty in Imam Ali, alayhi salam. For me, he is my biggest inspiration. And his beauty, the way he sacrifices everything for Islam, so devoted to Islam, to the people, but ultimately it's for Allah. It's all for Allah. As I mentioned in the lecture yesterday, he said, break the veils of light so that my eyes can lay upon you. I want to see you because he wants to see beauty. He wants the ultimate, absolute perfection. The only way I can say this to you without it being abstract and in the air is to imagine who you love the most in life. That beauty inside you and times it by a million is won't even be close to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's actual truth is. Because whatever you feel for that being, whether it's your child or spouse or anyone else, it's something that isn't, it's like a sun ray. You know, here I'm sitting down and the sun rays might enter into my home from the window, but it's not the sun, is it? It's a sun ray. I feel its ambience. But what would the sun be like? That's kind of like the concept. When you start wanting the source, when you start feeling it in certain times, I think we all feel it here and there. And we start looking for it, you know, in that peaceful sujood that you've had in your life where you felt God's presence. When God speaks to you in your mind or in your heart, you feel Him speaking to you. This devotes you, this brings you forward. And then slowly you trust and you have tawakkul. And then I saw in my own life personally how when I let go and I try my best to prepare for my death, life is a preparation for your death, to live forever. Because as Alamat Tabataba, it says, you are an infinite creation. So act in terms of infinity. You're going to live forever. Don't act in terms of these little 50, 60 years. Think of eternity. Think of forever. That's how long you're going to be living. So this is my inspiration, my devotion. And then there are the different names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you want to acquire. And people are different. They have different things. But for me, knowledge is something that I love. So knowledge, the feeling of knowledge, the pleasure of knowledge. And then when you love God's names, you don't want to accept anything contrary to God's names. So when you love God's name, Al-Adil, justice, we all love justice, right? If you see a young girl in the street and then a big man coming and taking her toys and hitting her, we wouldn't accept that. You want to defend the little girl. How could you do that? How could you hurt a little girl? Because we don't accept injustice. And justice is Allah. He is just and He acts justly, in the words of Imam Ali. So you would stand up for the girl. Same thing in life. We see oppressed people all around us in Palestine, and all around the world. We stand up to oppressors. in the name of justice for Allah. So then you start acting all these. So then you see justice, you see spirituality, you see knowledge, then you see beauty, and then you live with God. Then what else is there? What else is there really? Where did money get us? Nothing. Where did all the reputation get us? Nowhere. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. The Quran gives it to us. The only one successful is the one who came to Allah with a pure heart, a sound heart. That pure, sound heart is what we're looking for. So this has to be the priority in all of our lives, whether we are in Hausa or not, whether we are businessmen or not, wherever, whoever we are, wherever we are, housewives, it doesn't matter. Your priority is to cleanse your heart and support your community, support the poor, the oppressed, your neighbors, and cleanse your heart and your spirituality. And this is the formula of Imam Ali. That's his formula. And look at how our hearts gravitate towards him because it's true, and we love truth. So uh, I speak a lot, don't I? That's what motivates me.
Thank you. Bless you for that. Would you be able to talk to us a little bit about your experience with the monks as well? Because I know you've spoken about it. I've read a lot of the stuff you've written. Can you talk to our youth who are listening and that experience you had?
Yes, sure. When I was with the monks in China, something very very interesting happened to me there. Because I was the only Muslim, I felt like quite like an ambassador in a way. And they would ask me about Islam, and I'd ask them about Buddhism. I remember one night the monks they were asking me, they were telling me about compassion and about compassion within Buddhism, and asking me about compassion in Islam. And I said, yes, we have that. And they said, really? Do you have an example? And I said, yes. I told them about a man named Hussain ibn Ali, and he was surrounded in Karbala by 30,000 soldiers, and he was with a group of companions who never left him, and they never had water. But Imam al Hussein, he cried for the enemy because of what they're doing to their own selves, their own souls, and eternity. And that's compassion. And they were so impressed by the idea of a saint like that, like Imam Hussein, who would speak to them and tell them, don't do this to your own selves, not even about himself. Yet, still, such a balance with justice and a fight against tyranny. And subhanAllah, there was a brother that I was with in the room. He said, you know, you meditate with us, so can I learn about how you pray? So I told him the Fatiha. And this is something I really want the youth to understand, to be confident in your deen, in your religion. I was the only Muslim there, and I was so confident in my deen because, guys, we have it all. There'll be times I'll be sitting down and they're explaining things to me. And I don't want to sound arrogant, but wallah, sometimes, logically speaking, you, there are certain parts of theology that I can dismantle in their theology very easily. And I think, Alhamdulillah, Islamic theology is so strong compared to this, but it's not as the image of Islam is not as vibrant as that image. Maybe when it comes to the spiritual Sufi side of Islam, that has a bit more of an impact, but that's not what people see Islam as. They see Islam more as the beard coming down to here and swords and stuff like that. So we need to change that image, show them. When I would sit there, I'd thank Allah so much for this deep faith that He's given us, where we can answer every question. So it gave me so much belief in my religion when I traveled the world and I met people from different religions and different faiths and everywhere else. And I see young people in my faith, in my communities, when they have doubts are good sometimes. They can lead you to good questions and good answers in yourself. But when you have arrogant doubts, when you don't want to hear it, you don't want to listen. And a lot of the time I see myself in them when I would ask those questions as a young man. But I thank Allah that He put something in me that I wanted to listen. And that's what will make all the difference. I have many friends on the path who have left the path because they were not willing to listen or be patient or be humble or try to be sincere. Not that I am any of those things, but that I'll try to be those things. I definitely will try. And I think that's what will make the difference for someone who is in a state where they're not as confident in their deen as they could be. But take it from me, who I was in a room with one of them as well. This one was not a monk. He was a PhD in mathematics. He did not believe there was anything outside of the brain. And he would always tell me, he would say, when you wake up in the morning and you start singing, sing loud. I like when you sing. He meant pray Fajr. So I would wake up in the morning and Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And he loved it. And on the last day before we left China, he said to me, I came here looking for something spiritual to give my life. I came here looking for Buddhism. I never thought I'd end up finding Islam. And that meant the world. SubhanAllah. When you are confident in your faith and you try to seek knowledge in order to understand it and then explain it, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala starts to open doors for you and you start seeing your life lived in this way. And then there are no more coincidences. Like, I just spent the last 5 months putting a lot of effort into this Imam Ali series that right now is airing online. It took a lot out of me. I put my heart and soul into that. The research and the recording. As soon as I finished, I got a call to go to see Imam Ali. I went 2 days ago. I came back today. It's literally a 2 day ziyarah. I went and came back. When I went there, the way it happened, everything happened very suddenly. And I just thought to myself, this is not a coincidence that Imam Ali called me as soon as this happened. And this is what life begins to always be like. It's just always an interaction between you and the divine. And then you live that way. And I refuse to live any other way where life is mundane. No, it's alive. Your religion is alive. And it's something that we should have so much confidence in. And it takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of time. There's a lot of dry times, but then there are a lot of beautiful times. And Shahr Ramadan is one of those beautiful times. So we take advantage of it, inshallah.
Said, now there's a question here that I got from text message. Are there any books that you recommend for individuals to read? Or what book
Sure.
would you recommend for individuals to read?
Sure. I mean, I have different ideas of which books to recommend to which people. So it really depends on a person. I wouldn't suggest like a random book list. So when it comes to novels, there are certain books that I might recommend. When it comes to religion, when it comes to which part of religion, whether it's fiqh or whether it's theology, philosophy, and where the person's level is at. But what I would do is maybe think of more of a methodology by which you read. So let me just say that you're asking about Islam. Let's just say that. I would say if you want to know more about Islam from its roots and you have patience, then you want to read everything by Shahid Murtada Mutahari. Okay? You want to read everything by him, and it's all online at islam.org. If you want to understand more about your theology, Shia Islam, then there's a book by that title, Shia Islam by Allama Tabatabai. In English, you can read that too. If you want to not read about these things, you want to read about something spiritual, a random spiritual book, maybe not Islamic, then I would recommend A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. I'd recommend that book. For my young brothers, I recommend King, Warrior, Magician, Lover for psychology of masculinity. Um, in terms of novels, of course, I love The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. It's a meaningful book with a lot of nice little quotes. So these are all different types of books. If you want to go into academic style of Islam, I really recommend Sayyid Hussain Nasr. He's someone that I love his pen. I love how he writes. So he's quite a high level writer. So maybe if you're more advanced, you want to get into him. So it really depends on who you are, what you're looking for. If you want to look for discipline in your life, an awesome book that I really like is Mastery by Robert Greene. So that's a book that I always recommend someone who wants to build discipline. So it depends on what the person is looking for, but those are some flash outs off the top of my head of some of my favorite books.
Thank you. We have a question saying, is the pandemic a punishment from Allah?
No, the pandemic is not a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are causes and effects to these things. We still don't know what the source of this pandemic is. Um, what we can see is that we have to look at everything that has happened in this last year and realize how fragile life can be, and try to take heed of how short it can be and how much we actually rely on each other. How much we rely on each other. But to look at Allah through the lens of a, someone who wants to punish us with the pandemic, the world, listen, don't get me wrong, the world deserves punishment. But the signs do not point to this. The signs actually point to this being a man-made thing, if you ask me, from what I've been seeing around. I don't know where this thing came from, but there's something that's very not normal about it. And I'm not much of a conspiracy theory person, so I'm not going to get into the whole thing and Bill Gates and vaccines and everything else. So don't worry about that. I'm not getting into that. But I'm saying that there's something that is very unusual. But I do not believe this to be a divine punishment. I don't see it that way at all.
Thank you.
So Sayed, and I'm just going to follow up on that because there's been a lot of discussions, obviously, on this topic, right?
Yeah.
And some have said, this is a punishment. Some have said it's not a punishment. Just overall, looking at the pandemic and looking at the last year, like you said, this was an opportunity for us to really kind of look at ourselves, right? So what would you say? I mean, everything is a lesson, right? The lessons derived from everything. If you were to say there were a handful of lessons from the last year, what would you say the key lessons are for each of us to really reflect on and then kind of look? We're not out of it yet. There's still a ways to go here, right? Things are changing every day. Just when you think things are getting better, they're not getting better. I mean, what are the lessons that we should take from this and really, embrace as we move forward in our lives?
There are so many, it's a good question. There are so many lessons that we can take. For one thing, I think, is we realize how much we rely on each other, right, as a community. Maybe before, maybe people like to be isolated, left alone, but this really showed us how much we need each other, how much we rely on each other as a community, that so many of us are suffering because of this isolation. And people are having a lot of burnout lately. How much family matters, how much friends matter, companions, relationships, for hopefully when this whole thing fixes up, to invest in those. That's in terms of relationships. In terms of spirituality, I would say, think of Imam Mahdi and how he was going to come and bring the world together. Notice how everything is already happening slowly. This is what I would say. I see this as the world has become a lot smaller. As someone who is in the field of propagating religion, I have realized now I don't think things will go back to normal ever again for us people who propagate. I think the virtual world has now opened up a whole new way of propagation where people now, a lot of the time, are preferring to just do things online. Virtual reality is the way forward. I saw recently I was invited to do a course and I told them online and I said, let's wait until we do this in person. And they were like, no, we want it online. Even when like later on, when everything sorts out, we still want to do it online. And I was like, really? How come? And they said, because virtual reality, you get people from all over the world wanting to join it. Now that's not going to be everyone. For me personally, I still want to be in the masjid. And there's not no one, they're not saying opposite that. We'll still have the masjid, we'll still have that. But I think the world's gotten a lot smaller. And this is something that we have to reflect on spiritually. Why? Why am I saying this? Because the way that all of us are now coming closer together from thousands of miles around the world, speaking to each other. And then you have technology really moving forward at a rapid rate, where I'm not sure if you guys saw, but just recently Elon Musk's uh, gadget where he puts the chip in the brain, they tried it on a monkey, and the monkey was able to do it where he was playing video games through his mind, right? Without moving anything. He was playing ping pong on a screen with his mind. And this is going to be the combination of like technology, mobile phones, or whatever it is with the human body. And slowly AI is going forward. These are all very major changes. And imagine if you're sitting down and you have this in your head, and then you want to call someone, and you choose a friend to call and you start speaking to them, at least with a phone, like you hold it up, you talk. But now it's in your head, and it's like telepathy. You speak to someone from your head to someone in Australia. The reason why I'm saying all this is because these are all showing us how Imam al-Mahdi, Ajla Farjahu Sharif, when he comes, these things are happening very fast, and they're starting to create the image of this very small world with all these powers that you can see are technologically perhaps explained. I'm not saying he's going to be one using them that way, but I'm saying it's beginning to make a lot more sense. 100 years ago, if I told you I was in Karbala yesterday and now I'm in Lebanon, you'd say, how? But now you have airplanes, so no one's surprised. Same. In 100 years from now, we have no idea where we're going to be, but I believe that this pandemic and the consequences that could afterwards sped things up a lot in terms of the Imam's return, in terms of the preparation of the believers for it, in terms of us being used to something new right now. And in a few years' time, we're going to realize that this was a crossroads. And if we take advantage of it, then inshallah we'll be on the good end of how it ends. On the good side of how it ends. Inshallah.
And saying that, I think it was a cancer that kept you from us 3 years ago in office in the big White House that didn't allow you to come visit us when I think you were supposed to be with us 3 years ago. But it took a virus to bring us together, at least through this media. So it's a blessing.
Wow, that's deep. That's deep. That's a deep way to say it. Yeah, alhamdulillah.
So,
it's actually my blessing.
So let's wrap up with this last question. There's one more question, I think, then we can wrap it up. The question came in again through a private message. Where do you start introducing Islam to someone who wants to learn Islam?
Okay, this is a good question as well. Once again, it really depends on the person and what level they're at. So what they know, what they don't know, where they're going, and what they're interested in. So you don't want to give them something that is just a curriculum. You want to look at what they're interested in. Are they a spiritual person? Are they a logical person? Depends. But naturally, what I want to do is I want to get them into the Quran. Quran is number one. And the Quran has a context. So what I would do is to get you into the Quran, I want to tell you about Rasulullah. So I'd begin with the life of the Prophet Muhammad. That's how I want to teach someone who's a new Muslim. I'd say, learn about the life of Prophet Muhammad, and through that, learn about Quran. So learn about his life and what was revealed and what the ayah means, and go forward and what was revealed and what the ayah means. So you learn Quran in the context of the Prophet's life. Then you have an idea of what Islam's about. And that's why I made the Prophet Muhammad series online for anyone. It's it's a 10-part condensed series, very kid-friendly, adult-friendly, so that when you get into the religion, you know what all the principles are about. And when you know history, you know the context of the Quran. A lot of the time, if you read Quran without context, you don't know what's going on. When you know history, you know the context, and then you can understand the message. And from there, you begin to build upon that. So that's the foundation.
Okay, Said, and I think we can call it a wrap. I know it's late for you, it's late for us here as well. So, inshallah, again, thank you very much.
Thank you very
for your
much.
time. We look forward to the continuation of the lectures tomorrow. And then for those who are online, inshallah, next week, I think we're planning a workshop, yeah?
Yes.
So we'll sort out the timing for that and then make announcements to the community once we confirm the timing, yeah?
Thank you very much, Brother Amin Habib. Take care of yourself. Thank you, everyone. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.